So I guess this is part 2. Because it got cut off.
A phone call.
Yeah. Ends the video.
Figureoutable. She could have missed. Like how the mom spun it too. She had stuff in my head, her prized possession, and then it wasn't working.
Oh, it's her prized possession.
Mm-hmm.
Because she had stuff in the garage already from another project, so she was able to just get up there and fix it.
Ready?
Mm-hmm. It kind of broke my heart a little bit to hear that the radio had stopped working, because that was like her prized possession, and something you could tell she enjoyed. She had it everywhere that she was working on a tough project. So that's just me reading into it a little too much, but she could have thrown it away or try to get a new one, but her first instinct was, I'm gonna fix this.
Yeah, and she ended up being able to fix it, and she had parts for it, so awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so that's pretty much chapter 1, the little intro story.
Yeah. If that doesn't move you to keep reading, I don't know what will.
So, sarcasm. It kind of sounded like with your tone.
You should keep reading. Exhaustion. Yeah, edit that part out.
Okay, so now we're going to move into chapter 2, unless we don't want to. Holy moly. Are you going to...
Where are we at? Are we done with this?
Did you want to say anything more with that?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so that's
You could delete it right now.
me reading into it a little too much, but she could have thrown it away or tried to get a new one, but her first instinct was, I'm going to fix this. Yeah, and she ended up being able to fix it, and she had parts for it, so awesome.
All right, ready to enter chapter 2?
Roadmap to your results. Train your brain.
So she goes over 5 things.
Train your brain.
I'm staring at you guys right now because there's a text message. So I was reading it. Ugh. So there's 5
Don't offend yourself.
rules, 5 ground rules.
Do the work. Connect with our community. Our community, not hers. I'm just kidding.
Both. That's all. So what's the title?
Your
So,
roadmap.
What if I do
to
chapter
results.
2, roadmap to results, and you read that thing?
Yes, I can read.
Ready?
Shirley Chisholm.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we're going to move on to chapter 2, and it's titled Your Roadmap to Results.
You don't make progress by standing on the sidelines, whimpering and complaining. You make progress by implementing ideas.
So chapter 2 is all about kind of the ground rules of everything is Figureoutable, because, I mean, gravity. You can't literally defy gravity. I mean, sure, but now we can go up in planes. So technically, yes, we have figured it out. But you on your own, you cannot make gravity not exist unless you go in off of the Earth.
Right.
Which, again, that's Figureoutable.
I think she's combating people that are like, everything's
Skeptics.
Figureoutable. Like, I can fly. And she's like, okay, right, you're not going to sprout wings and fly, but airplanes, like you were saying, helicopters, all the things.
So this is kind of the ground rules towards the skeptics, but also to get you moving. So the first one is train your brain for growth.
Right. So it's kind of having that growth mindset mentality, which we've preached a lot and has come up so many times in all of our book studies. But you got to have your head in the right spot, and positive self-talk, which we'll get into more in later books. But you want to feed your brain good information and good self-talk, so that way you can achieve what you want.
A lot of it talks about, well, we've talked about this with the power of positive thinking, reframing whole sentences even, instead of like, don't run in the hall, you could say, please walk, or whatever way you want them to walk. So whenever you're reading this book or whenever you're listening to this mini-series, if you hear things like, oh, I know this already. So instead of saying, I know this already, or I've heard this a million times before, you need to ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Are you implementing it in this way? Have you tried it this way? Is there something you're missing, or can you improve more on that? So that's one of the things. I know this already. So to combat that, use a growth mindset there. The next thing she wants you to kind of tweak is this won't work for me. So instead of saying that this is not going to work for you, you need to say, how can this work for me? So if we come to a point where you're going to try this exercise or hear this story, instead of saying, oh, that's not going to work for me, this reason, this reason, this reason, you need to say, okay, how can I spin it to where it fits my lifestyle in this life phase?
I like how she talks to that turning statements into questions. Asking questions, your brain tries to go and find the answers to it. When you give it a definitive statement, it's like, oh, nothing to figure out here. That must be truth and fact. So whenever you find yourself having negative self-talk or, limiting beliefs, if you can rephrase it into a question, that's a really great suggestion. I like.
And that takes really intentional, deliberate practice consistently. So make sure throughout this mini-series, you're trying to rephrase everything positively, whether it's during this podcast or during your workday or when you're trying to get kids ready or whatever it is that you're doing. So find a way to positively phrase things.
And I think if you have an accountability partner, that's what you guys could do for each other. So, there's times when you're like, hey, I just want to vent.
Yes. Don't you positive phrase me.
Now is not the time for positivity. No, but, if you're confiding in a friend saying, I'm really having a hard time with this, I can't blah. Maybe your friend could then turn that into a question. So, something to try.
All right, so that was the first rule, train your brain for growth. The second rule is try it before you deny it. So this is more of the skeptic.
It's a lot like when you want your kids to try new foods and they're like, I don't like it. And you're like, you haven't even had it.
Yes,
For example, one of my kids swore up and down that they did not like Reese's peanut butter cups. And so,
what kind of child did you raise?
Well, actually, I was pretty excited at first because that's one of my faves. And
more
I was
for me. That's right. You do hate these.
Yeah,
let me have them.
I'll eat it for you. I'll sacrifice.
Oh, what a good mom. Such a martyr.
But I was like, no, you do like it. Eat it. And then you gotta look away. And then they sneak a bite. And then it was like, oh yeah, I knew I liked these. I won't mention any names.
And make sure you're watching the YouTube videos so you see what kid she just said.
I love her tremendously.
Yeah, you do. Okay, so she has 3 rules about the kind of the skeptic side of this. So these are the ground rules to everything is figureoutable. So here it is for all the cynical people out there. Rule number 1.
All problems or dreams are figureoutable.
Wait. You're telling me all of them are figureoutable?
Facts.
Okay, rule 2.
If a problem is not figureoutable, it's because it's not really a problem. It is a fact of life, such as death or gravity, which we touched on briefly.
And then rule 3. So rule number 1, all problems are figureoutable or dreams. Rule number 2, if it's not figureoutable, it's not really a problem, it's just how the world we live in works. And so rule 3.
You may not care enough to figure this problem out or achieve this particular dream, and that's okay. So if you keep finding yourself, again, making excuses, which is hard to swallow and accept, then maybe you don't care enough about that dream, and that's okay. Coming to that realization can actually help move you forward in your hunt for whatever dream or passion you are meant to pursue.
Right. So again, just check yourself on that one because, again, like you said, it's okay if that's not your number 1 goal. If you want to do this thing and this thing and this thing and I can't do all of it. Okay, well, it's okay if you're not going to fully focus on one of those. Just put it to the side or chip away at that one slowly and work on the other things.
Rule number 3, the bigger of the rules. So those were 3 rules within a rule. So the first one, again, was...
on the roadmap.
Right, roadmap to success. Train your brain for growth. 2, try it before you deny it. So we're on to the overarching rule number 3. Don't offend yourself.
This is the part where she's like, hey, I do say some certain things that could kind of offend people, so if that's gonna bother you, let's just part ways, stay in touch, or listen to this podcast. We'll tell you what the book says.
Yeah. we got you.
Mm-hmm.
She does go ahead and point it out first that, you know, she's a white woman born in the U.S., and so she just, I think, coming forward with that helps you be ready to hear what she has to say. You know, she's not trying to deny what privileges she may or may not have. So there you go.
This is her spin on what works for her, and she, if it's working for you, why would you not want to try to share with someone, and maybe it'll work for them too. So
Perfect. Rule number 4, do the work.
yep.
This is a hard rule.
You mean to tell me if I want something different, I gotta change?
And like work really, 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 really hard and harder than that, and it's still gonna suck some days? Yep.
Betcha.
Turns out exactly that way. My kids want a clean house, but they don't want to clean it. They have too much stuff, but they don't want to get rid of anything. So they're hungry, but they can't walk to the kitchen to eat the food that someone else cooked for them. It's sad. It's all sad, but
So,
turns out if you do the work, a lot of times there's reward.
right, and it's gonna take commitment, and again, daily commitment, keeping it at the forefront of your mind, not just touch and go, or like, oh yeah, I think I'll pick this back up again. You're not gonna get, if you want quicker results, you're going to work more with your goal. So again, doing the work. Mark Batterson, he's a preacher at National Community Church in Washington, D.C., and he has lots of great books. And one of his books, he's the one who does Circle Maker and In the Pit with a Lion on a Snowy Day and other great stuff. But he talks about how pray like it's, or work like it depends on you, and pray like it depends on God. So I know that kind of sounds like a conundrum. So obviously God is in control, and we need to pray what our God wants to hear our desires. He's our father figure, so expressing that. But also, you got to put in the work too. You can't say, oh God, I really want to win the lottery, and never buy a lotto ticket. That's not how this works. So again, you've got to put in the work too. God wants great things for you, but he's not just, you've got to work for it. Oh man, I really want a good job, but I'm not going to show up to it. Like that, no.
Yeah. I like too that she reminds us that repetition is a really big piece. So sometimes if I've been doing the same thing for a while and I'm not seeing the progress, I'm like, well, I must be doing something wrong, or, well, look how much I have done, I quit. And how many times are we quitting like right before our breakthrough, you
Right.
know? So there's a balance there. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, right? But just knowing that sometimes it's going to take lots of repetition.
Right, and that goes back to that Atomic Habits book that we talked about a couple episodes ago. Ice cube melting. It is the room is slowly warming up, but the ice still isn't melting. It doesn't start melting until it finally gets to above 32 degrees. So all those degrees before that you're slowly inching, so 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, that is still progress. You just aren't seeing anything yet. And also, throughout this book, you might hear reoccurring themes that we've already talked about, like you've got to work if you want results. Just remember that repetition helps your brain, so neuroplasticity, that's something we talked about with grit, that's something we're going to talk about in Switch on Your Brain. That's how your brain works. So repetition is going to help retrain your brain.
Right, so then when you are putting in the hard work, you're not caught off guard. You're like, oh, I knew this was going to be hard work.
Right.
And so it doesn't seem...
This is what I do now.
Yeah, it doesn't seem as overwhelming. All right, and the 5th rule is connect with our community.
We preach this one a lot. Anyone can read a book. Anyone can read Everything is Figureoutable. But if you don't implement things, you're not going to grow. Anyone can read the Bible, but if you're not applying those principles and following through, you're not going to see much change or growth. So again, join a community. We have a Facebook group. Answer some questions again in our group. It's for free.
For free.
For now, so join it.
Before it's too late.
Dun, dun, dun. But yes, we love to answer any of your questions. So if you want to reach out, or if you want that community, join the Facebook group, Witty and Gritty. It's the group, so it's different from the page. So the group is where you guys can pose questions. So there's that.
And in other texts that we've covered, this is a hard process. It's going to have some hard knocks. And so to grow in a community of people that have been through similar situations, can give their advice, or just to cheer you on, is going to make the journey a lot easier.
Right.
That's why I got you, babe.
Don't grow alone.
I got you, babe. I got you, babe.
So that is chapter 1 and chapter 2 of Everything is Figureoutable. Those are the ground rules and kind of her backstory about the orange and how she came up with the motto, Everything is Figureoutable. So next week we're going to go further into the book with chapter 3, and then we'll go on from there.
Yep. Looking forward to it.
Yes, we'll see you guys next week. You're not going to say it? All right.
I was trying to get to chapter 3. That's okay. We don't need to say it.
Nope. Well, it's been real, guys. Faren's gonna go to sleep now. Because you're exhausted, and I'm gonna go pay a babysitter. Alright, bye.